I noticed that after every session, I felt immensely happy. And I couldn't even explain it. It was like I had this laughter on my chest, inside my chest. And I could just walk back home because I felt so energized, and I found everything absolutely beautiful and wonderful. It's like a weight, or many weights have been lifted one at a time after each session. So like I say, it wasn't fireworks, but I noticed that I realized my programs. I realized the programs I had with my romantic partners. I realized the programs I had with the people that work for me. I had the programs that I had with my providers in the company. And by programs, I mean the behaviors I had, the ways of acting, the ways of thinking, and the generalizations and the beliefs that I had in myself.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Woman Fully Alive podcast. And I have a really special guest with me today because we're going to dive into all things hypnotherapy and channeling as perhaps part of your personal growth journey. So I've got with me Andrea Ramirez. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, Madeline. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. So Andrea's coming to us from Portugal today, and she is a hypnotherapist, a channeler, and a spiritual coach. And I know many of my listeners are kind of curious about channeling, and hypnotherapy, and how that can kind of get intertwined or woven in to your own personal growth journey. So excited to dive into today's topic. So Andrea, I'm wondering if I always like to ask people how they ended up taking this journey to where you are now. What was it that brought you to these places?
So I'm originally from Chile. I grew up in the dictatorship Chile of the 80s. I left Chile around when I turned 20. I started working on cruise ship and expedition cruises to the Arctic and the Antarctic, which was a lot of fun. And
And
then I
cold.
moved to, yes, and cold. And then I moved to Spain. I moved to Barcelona. My father has been there for a long time. And I kind of just stayed there. I'm Chilean and Spanish. And I've, in one hand, touching the subject of channeling, I've always had what you could call very strong metaphysical experiences growing up since I was a very young child. So I would see energies, interact with energies. I have clairaudience. I could hear messages. I could see things. I could have premonitory dreams. I could dream things that were going to happen the next day, even years ahead. And all these kind of energy games that I had growing up. So that's one part, like the spiritual part that I would like to call, which is opposite to religion. This is something that is your personal connection with something greater than us that we could call spirit, source, or the universe. And then in the other hand, in 2018, I had a monster flare up. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I was misdiagnosed for the first 6 months, which meant I was 6 months taking the wrong medications. I was bleeding incessantly to a point that by the time I got to the ER for the second time, they had to put me straight on a table and try to find my veins and try to make my body recover because I was 3 days away from kidney failure. So
Okay.
um, this was obviously very shocking to me because I've been nothing but healthy, not one cold a year even. And to have this was very debilitating, and it really made me question many things. Like I was about to die. So I spent
Yeah.
a month in the hospital. And during that month, the chief nurse came to me and she said, "What you have is a chronic disease. It will never leave your body, and you have to get used to it. You have to like deal with it. And I thought it was so unfair. I thought that was something completely unacceptable to me. And I cried out of frustration because I felt like I'd been thrown in jail and they just threw away the key. And in that moment, I thought, I refuse to believe this. I refuse to take this as my truth. And as soon as I could start reading and researching while I was in the hospital, I discovered people like Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and I started discovering the power of the subconscious, and especially that I was another statistic in women, because 80 to 90% of women in the world are sufferers of autoimmune diseases. And some of the aspects that makes us get sick are social conditioning, but also childhood trauma. And here is when it came to me. Sorry. I grew up with a textbook narcissist mother. And
Okay.
although I had this spiritual part of me that would always make me feel like I am worth it and I am not what I've been told I am, obviously, as a child, we don't have the tools to deal with that kind of harshness and language and environment. And obviously, this marked all my interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, work relationships, friendships. And when I had my company in Barcelona, it was this mix of having employees, having providers, having my romantic partner, and me putting everything else in front of me but me. So I started taking too much care of everything and everyone else. I put the bar incredibly high for everyone because I was very harsh with myself. And eventually my body said, you know what? You're not getting it. We're getting sick. And I believe that's pretty much
Yeah.
what happened to me.
You know, if we could just pause for a moment, there is so much in what you just said because, you know, many of my listeners have heard that message before. You will have this forever. You will always have chronic pain. So learn to live with it. And it's just like a sentence, like given that if, you know, it's so easy to take that on. And also, you know, that eventually, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, the body says, no, no more. You need to pay attention to me. And it's in those moments of severe crisis, or in your case, like close to death, that women realize that we can no longer do this. And I think what we're going to get into is how do you recognize that? And how do you shift that? Maybe you've already had an experience like that, but if you haven't, how do you stop that train crash from coming? So thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, so what happened next when you realized all this and the subconscious, the power of the subconscious mind and the childhood programming?
Yes, yes, the childhood programming. That's a key. Um, because we have we run our day mostly in our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind only consists of 5% of what we use during the day. So the other 95% are programs. We are basically running on autopilot every day. And if you think of a child, when we are the last 3 months of our mom's pregnancy until we are around 7 years old, our brain is working on theta brain waves. And theta brain waves is hypnosis, to put it very, very easy. So absolutely
Okay.
everything that we hear, everything that happened to us, every nuance, every word, like your father could tell you one time as a child, you look fat in that dress, and you will absorb this like a program and like a truth. So if you think of your brain as a computer, you are taking all the programs and putting them into your motherboard, into your software. And that is the blueprint to which you will run your life when you grow up. So this is something that thankfully now it's becoming mainstream. But at the time when I was sick, I had to really look for this information. Why is this happening to me? I had no idea what a chronic illness was. When I found out about Dr. Gabor Mate, it immediately started talking about trauma. And when I found out about trauma, I found out about Dr. Bruce Lipton and other professionals that talk about our subconscious mind and how these programs run our bodies and our realities, really. So by the time I left the hospital, I was still bleeding. The doctors weren't really sure if they should, let me go or not, but I had to leave. It was already a month. I wasn't dying anymore, but I wasn't healed. And I always like to say that life kind of opened up to me because I met these two doctors, like MDs, but they also worked with holistic medicine. And one of the branches that they would work with was hypnotherapy. And I started working with one of the doctors, and to my surprise, she didn't give me any medications. She only gave me supplements, herbal supplements, and all she did was work with my subconscious via hypnotherapy. And
Okay,
we
that's very lucky.
addressed
That's
it.
fortunate.
Yes, I know. Like, I was like, okay, let's try this. Let's see how this will go. And we started doing hypnotherapy, and we immediately went to those early years of childhood. And we started working through all that programming. And it was really incredible because I did a sessions with her for about a month, and the flare up was gone. The only flare up I had afterwards was during COVID, because I do believe that ulcerative colitis is an emotional disease. So I have a company still in the tourism area, and tourism was completely halted. So that obviously made me very nervous, and I reacted, and I had a flare up in 2020. But since that year, I haven't had any flare ups. And this is my very personal, I want to say my very personal experience. I'm not taking any medication. I'm not suppressing my immune system. And I have changed the way I see the world. I see myself and my childhood and my reality and all the relationships I've had in the past in a completely different light, thanks to hypnotherapy. And because
Okay.
of that, changing my life, I decided to study it and become kind of like an expert on it, because I went really 1000% into it, and trying to learn all sorts of different techniques that could actually be of help.
Well, we end up teaching what we have learned or needed to learn ourselves, so that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just curious, in that first session with the hypnotherapist, did you have an idea that did you know where you were going with this, to all your childhood programming, or did you just end up there?
We started intentionally going towards a hypothetical situation of childhood. You could call it generic. A child is there, the parents fight, and the child thinks it's the child's fault. So, because when we're children, we're intrinsically narcissistic. And so it all started from there. When we were there, the way it was addressed was so compassionate, was so loving, was so much avoidant of reliving or restudying or going through every little detail or word or experience that happened to me during childhood. We just addressed these universal experiences, these archetypal experiences that you could have as a child in our world. And from then, subconscious does its job. Subconscious is almost akin to a divine mind. It's wildly creative. And that means that although it's creative, it doesn't care about your quality of life, which is really curious, because if you don't want to go to an event, maybe you get a panic attack. And you think, oh my God, I wish there was a different way that every time I don't want to do something, I don't have to get a panic attack. Well, that's your subconscious protecting you because that is its job. And you think, oh my God, this is terrible. So with hypnotherapy, you work with subconscious and say, you have a conversation. Like I say, you have a conversation with subconscious and you say, look, could you do the same, protecting Madeline, for example, but without using this old behavior of a panic attack? Could you use something that is happier and healthier for her? And subconscious is going to
Okay.
say, oh, okay, I will think about it. And then subconscious says, you know what? I got it, but I cannot tell you what it is. We will just see over time. And then suddenly you realize that maybe before you go to one of these events that you didn't want to go, you don't feel that dread. You don't have the sweaty
Mm,
palms. You don't have you're not shaking. And you're simply having a different outlook to the situation. So
yeah.
your subconscious already did the work. It wasn't fireworks, but you're not getting a panic attack.
It almost sounds sort of like magical, that you have this conversation, which I love, like just having this conversation without trying to control or figure out with your mind or change. And, I speak about the nervous system in the same way. It's not concerned with your joy and happiness. It's concerned with your survival. And
Yes.
so how to befriend the nervous system, subconscious, emotional body. And this sounds like an extremely compassionate way of moving through this in a way that doesn't involve going back and having to relive the trauma, but tapping into those universal archetypal patterns of childhood. And so did you just start to then see these shifts in your own, they just started showing up in your life, and then you realize, oh, something's changed?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the first thing was my general outlook in life. I noticed that after every session, I felt immensely happy. And I couldn't even explain it. It was like I had this laughter on my chest, inside my chest. And I could just walk back home because I felt so energized and I found everything absolutely beautiful and wonderful. It's like a weight or many weights have been lifted one at a time after each session. So like I say, it wasn't fireworks, but I noticed that I realized my programs. I realized the programs I had with my romantic partners. I realized the programs I had with the people that work for me. I had the programs that I had with my providers in the company. And by programs, I mean the behaviors I had, the ways of acting, the ways of thinking, and the generalizations and the beliefs that I had in myself of how things are or were, realizing that they were all backed up by these subconscious beliefs that were picked up during childhood. And I mean, we all, like Dr. Gabor Mate says, this is not a competition. This is not who has the biggest trauma. Because for a child, one word that your father says to you could hurt you just as much as growing in a very conflicted area and having a very, you know, very difficult upbringing with parents or caretakers that are difficult, etc. Everything works just the same in our subconscious. And until we don't change those programs, they will keep on running our lives. So
Mm-hmm.
when you work with hypnotherapy, because of this way that I work, it's so compassionate. There is something that's even called the silent hypnotherapist. So there are people that might come very charged with very heavy situations going on in their lives or something very heavy that happened to them in the past that they don't really need to talk to me and tell me what happened to them. They just have to come very clear with the idea that they want to heal and they want to change something to improve their quality of life. And then we can work on that. I don't need to know exactly What is it that you need to heal?
Right.
You need to know what you want to heal so I can help you. So it's kind of a very compassionate way, like you said, of dealing with things. It's a very delicate way because unfortunately most therapies that you find, whether they are holistic or not, they are very intrusive. They are very violent. And although this might sound a little weird on my end, but it's almost patriarchal. It's very not careful, not loving, not containing. So I'm very happy that I found this, and how the research today is supporting all of these things that I'm saying, because our mind works around 27, or subconscious mind works around 27,000 times faster than our conscious mind.
Right.
And that
Right.
means we can make a change in one session like this, because your
Right.
mind, your subconscious mind is divine, is highly creative, is wonderful, is highly plastic. There is this neuroplasticity factor that we have in our brain that helps us change, and it goes so fast. It's just wonderful.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you brought in this idea of, and using the word patriarchy as a system. It's like our conscious mind tries to, for example, I want to really change this pattern of people pleasing, or I know that perfectionism is the problem for me. And it would come in and we with all our tools and try to, like, with the conscious mind, fix it, heal it, get it out of there. Whereas, like, we're almost like telling our conscious mind, telling our subconscious that I know what's best for you. When the subconscious is like, okay, well, let's see how this goes, and has this far greater capacity and knowing of what is really going to, shift things internally in terms of energy. And the idea of, like, that we think we know, and we don't always know.
No.
So how did yeah so and then you kind of moved. So I want to know a little bit more about your journey, but it sounds like you haven't really had um a, a relapse, just the one during COVID, which makes a lot of sense. And this idea of just tuning into your own intuition to know, like, how am I feeling, how is my stress level. And what I try to work with women around is taking that attention and just bringing it back into what is actually happening for me right now. And it makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is very, very important. We cannot heal if we don't feel safe in our bodies. If our bodies are our enemies, we cannot heal. It's impossible. And it is said also that in our body lives the subconscious. So once we start dealing with our body in a more kinesthetic way, in a more way of feeling what we're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and lovingly trying to shift that energy into a state that is more, that it's healthier for us, that it's happier for us, that it's more benevolent to us. It's like we have to become our own nurturers. We have to reparent ourselves. We have to become our own mothers, our own fathers. We have to be loving, kind, and gentle with ourselves. And we need to put some discipline when discipline is needed as well, but do it in a way that we would like someone to tell us, right? I mean, how would you tell your best friend or the most loved person in your life to change a habit? You probably wouldn't address it in a very aggressive way. You will do it in a loving way. And in the same way, we need to work with ourselves and with our bodies and how we talk to ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves is also creating programs all the time. And the thing is, if the metaphor of a computer, if we have a computer and the microphone is not working properly, and we change the microphone and it's still not working properly, and we buy another microphone and it's still not working properly. Okay, we change the computer, maybe, I don't know, but we are the computer.
Hmm.
And what is not working is not necessarily the microphone, but the program that is running, the software that runs the microphone. We can change cities, we can change states, we can change looks, we can change jobs, we can change partners. It's not going to matter for as long as you don't change your software, for as long as you don't change your programs, your life is not going to change. And as cliche as it sounds, the change does happen from the inside. It cannot come from the outside. When you change on the inside, everything outside changes. And it's not necessarily that it really changes. Now you can see people, now you can see opportunity, now you can see coincidences, and now you can observe your circumstances instead of those circumstances having power over you.
That's so beautiful and so, so true. And as humans, we bang our head against the wall, sometimes just until our head is so bruised, until we really kind of get that everything changes from the inside. A lot of people are struggling right now with the external and everything that's happening in the world. And so, yeah, I feel like this is a timely message. So, channeling, let's just dive into that a little bit and how you came. Obviously, you're intuitive, you're sensitive, open nervous system, always have been. And how did you start embracing that gift of channeling?
So I've always received messages in one way or the other. So I could hear whispers, hear things, and we tend to gaslight ourselves when we have some intuitive message coming our way, like, oh, did I read this? Or maybe I heard this from somebody else, or no, but it's your intuition telling you something. And then when you prove in your life that it actually was true, it's like, oh, okay. So in my life, it was like this most of the time. I had a very strong intuitive drive, but at the same time, because of trauma, I would suppress it and think with my 5% conscious mind, which didn't work very well. It didn't get me far. It got me involved with the wrong people a few times and, all these stories. But there was a moment after 2018 that I had something that is called QHHT. From
Mm-hmm.
Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon brought this into the world, and it's called quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Mm-hmm.
When I did that, I realized that one, what I needed was to have some sort of structure around me so I could have a better clarity of the messages that I was receiving. Because if you're mixed up with your conscious mind and everything, with your ego, our ego is driving our lives all the time. And the ego loves to be right. The ego loves to have their reality um, outside of the body, outside of your reality. And so when I had that experience and I learned these protocols to protect my energy, this is when channeling became very, very powerful in my life. Now, channeling is a form of mediumship. So that means that I can connect with consciousness of the people that have passed. I connect with my pet when she's sick. I connect with her
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and ask her how she's feeling, as crazy as it sounds. Um, but we all have this capacity to connect to this higher wisdom that I like to call. A singer, a composer, you usually hear them say, and I don't know, the music is coming from somewhere to me, and I just write it
I
down
just
and I just play the
downloaded it.
song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like I always say, we have these two internets, right? We have the one in the matrix that is allowing us to have this conversation. And then we have one that is in the ether, one that is the universal internet where all wisdom and all information is. And it's about tapping into that by tuning ourselves into that energy, which is a very high frequency energy. And this is how I started to recognize this gift more and more, because I believe that as much as we have the five physical senses, we also have psychic senses. And we're not good in all of them, maybe. Maybe we're very good at one of them, So maybe
Mm-hmm.
somebody's really good with the pendulum, another person is really good with the tarot, another person is really good with channeling. And so that's like my weapon of choice. Channeling is something
Yeah.
that came very natural in my life. And also, I've never felt so much love as when I first started doing channeling the right way, like I said, because there are many people that are naturally intuitive and they can open their perception. Actually, that's what I did before. I opened my perception, I got messages. But the thing is, when you open your perception, it's like opening the doors and the windows to your house. Anything can
Mm.
come in, anything can go out, anything can linger in there without you knowing. So having a protocol of protecting your energy allows it that when you open your perception, there is a bouncer at the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
can come in, nothing can go out, nothing can come in and linger. And so this allowed me to trust more the process and receive more messages intuitively. And that helps a
Okay.
lot when I'm working with hypnotherapy, for example, because I can observe and I can feel and I can receive messages that will also help people to receive those messages via metaphor while they are in this hypnotic trance state. And it's very healing because I cannot program anything into you. Subconscious is not stupid. I
Right.
can
It's not like the
tell you a
hypnotist we see on the stage.
oh God, no, no,
No.
that's the old-fashioned stuff. That's the old-fashioned stuff. They say you will quit smoking and you're gonna hate cigarettes, and the next thing is you're gonna vomit when you see a cigarette. Yeah, okay, I do that, but now I'm addicted to sugar. So
Right,
it
right. We
wasn't
never got rid of the programming.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So um yeah, I love it. Just kind of brings up this idea of free will that when we have access to huge intuition and at the same time bringing in a protocol of protection for ourselves when we're doing that. And so some people channel certain beings or past lives or people that have passed. Is there anything in particular that you channel, or when someone comes to meet with you, or do you just incorporate it into the hypnotherapy?
I work with what you could call source energy or divine energy or universal source energy, because if you think of it in terms of hierarchy, source, divine source, God, the universe, the creator, it's like the boss. Everybody else is a representative, right? I mean, I don't mean to talk bad about archangels and all this, but
But it's all
what I'm
yours.
trying,
Or yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I work with that energy because to me is the energy that I feel more attuned to, the one that I feel in my body is the most truthful and real and loving and non-manipulative. Like I know this is not some kind of mockingbird energy.
yeah,
And this is why it works very well when incorporated into hypnotherapy because it's such loving messages with such care and love and in such a soft tone that they are comforting, they are healing. Maybe there is a word I say, maybe there is a metaphor I use, and it does change something in the person. And the results are that the person on the other side feels happier, feels lighter, very much what I felt when I finished those first sessions those years ago. So to me, that's very fulfilling. And the fact that we connect through hypnotherapy with these high frequency energies, I believe that as we're all energy, we're sharing this energy space right now, although we are in a distance, but time and space don't really exist. So we're sharing energy regardless. You are also attuning to this high frequency energy. Like we are like light bulbs. And when we shine in our divine energy, other people also start turning on their light bulbs. They don't have to work too much for it. They suddenly feel curious. They're suddenly getting messages. They're suddenly becoming more intuitive. And it's beautiful, and it makes you realize the responsibility we have of taking care of our state of mind, taking care of our emotional state or physical state, because it affects the people around us as much as we have to be very, very intentional about the people we spend time with, or the places that we go, or the crowds that we mingle with, because this all affects our energy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like the women that I work with are highly sensitive empaths. And so have been absorbing the energies of the world throughout their life. And so, and what I think what you're saying to us is that that's a wonderful quality to have. And yet we have a big responsibility to keep our light bulb burning, so it doesn't go out. So I would ask, for the people that are listening right now to this podcast, it would be really beneficial, I think, as you're listening, to tune in to what kind of energy are you experiencing right now? What kind of energy are you picking up? And circling back to something that you in your body that you said earlier, how quickly we go to gaslighting ourselves. Oh, it must have been, what I ate this morning, or, it's because somebody was nice to me yesterday. That's why I'm feeling good, like these external things, or I'm not fighting with my spouse right now, so it's a good day. Um, but how we can come back to really listening and tuning in, that's a skill in itself, to not talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because our brain is here to protect us, right? Our brain is put there to help us survive, not to make us happy. And we need to remember that. Just not everything
Mhm.
that is happening in our minds or that we're processing through our minds or body feelings or emotions, it's necessarily real or true. So what I like to do is to invite people to, if it's difficult for them to meditate, because meditating is very difficult for some people, especially now with all the social media, our brain is like
Mhm.
in overdrive. I
Mhm.
always call for what I call meditation supplements, which is basically moments of savoring. So when you're having that coffee, focus only in the smell, the flavor, the texture, the temperature of that coffee, and feel it in your body. What is it doing as it enters your body? And then doing this several times a day, taking those moments of appreciation, those moments of savoring, you are creating space in your brain. You're using that fabulous neuroplasticity that we have to create these new neural nets that will allow space for us to spend more time in silence and attuning to ourselves, to our inner world. For some people, it's scary, this inner world, because that's where we have been hiding all this trauma, all these monsters, all that pain, and all that suffering. So if we start with moments of savoring, that means you're taking something that is delicious and that you love into your body. So feel that emotion when you're experiencing that meal. Make of these small moments an experience on its own. And then at some point,
Mm.
you will find yourself taking moments intentionally to just meditate, which is great. So that's one of the things that I always advise, because although it's very nice to have guided meditations and metaphors and storytelling, I believe that we need to spend time in silence. There's too much noise already outside, which brings me to
Yeah.
the second point of be very mindful and realize what is it that you are consuming, and not only food wise, but also the conversations that you chip in, the things that you hear, the songs that you hear. Have you ever paid attention to the lyrics? What are they saying? Because
Mm.
when we listen to the song, when we're watching that movie, when we are doom scrolling, that is when we are 100% in our subconscious mind. Our brain waves change. We are completely absorbed by that reality. So our conscious mind left the building. It's the subconscious mind that is saying, okay, give me this song. What is it saying? Oh, okay, you're repeating it all the time. You love it. Let's make it a program.
Yeah.
I'm doom
Yeah.
scrolling. I'm looking at the news all the time. Oh, the world is a horrible place. Well, your world will indeed become a horrible place because subconscious does not understand what's real and what's imagined. So again, being intentional about the hygiene that we have in our life, of what we consume. And I think those two are the most important parts. When we have that eye
Mhm.
hygiene and when we are intentional about savoring, we're going to start feeling safer in our bodies. We're not going to put our safety outside in the circumstances or whatever social media tells us or the news. And it's an empowering workout, so to speak, and one of the most important, because if we don't do that, you will get sick. I
Mhm.
can sign that to you right now. You will get sick.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Those 2 points, to savor, to feel. I've got a hot chocolate here. Or looking out the window and allowing the body to receive what life is abundantly offering us right now, intentionally, and absorbing that into the body. And the second point, that we get stuck, we get addicted to the drama,
Oh yeah.
pulls us down those rabbit holes. And there's some social media is quite happy to do that for you. And so to pick yourself out of that, it is a workout. It's like doing a bicep lift, like
Yeah.
to come out of that. And because, as you've told us, that leads to anxiety, to stress, and that leads to illness and pain. And so you can have all the medications, all the injections, everything, that medical system has to offer you. But if you're doom scrolling every day, it's not going to work. So what a
No.
powerful, powerful message. So, Andrea, I'm just wondering, as we're just going to wrap up here, if there's, I think you've given our listeners some really great ways to get started with simple everyday habits that everybody on this planet can do. Um, is there anything else that you want to add? And also, how do people find out about you? How do people work with you?
So I have a project that is very close to my heart. It's a love child of three ladies, my two associates and me, and it's called Magical Audios. And it's self-hypnosis designed for women to help women overcome burnout. We also have a beautiful library of over 70 audios of different types, like meditations, Ho'oponopono, subliminals, affirmations, but it's mostly self hypnosis. And this is our little chunk that we want to give back to the world because both my associates and me have been in burnout and we have gone through the science of it. And we think it's just so unfair that this is happening to women so much that we have created very affordable programs that are very easy, that are very science backed, and that also include preparation before the you listen to these self hypnosis audios, because we want to give this to the world. This is really our love child. This is something that is made out of with a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. And if anything, I would like to invite also men, because we have men subscribing to the website too. Like the language is very neutral. So I would like to
Okay.
invite people to check it out. We are giving lots of free self hypnosis for people to try. And the nice thing is that if it's already difficult to meditate and take some time to meditate, with self hypnosis recordings, all you have to do is you put your headset before you go to sleep and you can fall asleep and it doesn't matter because subconscious is always listening. And
Right.
this
I love that.
does something in
Easy.
your subconscious, in your life. It's easy. I mean, we have been in burnout, and when you're in burnout, you don't want to take that extra half an hour or extra 20
No.
minutes to go through a painful guided meditation that while you're thinking of all the things that happened during your day. So they are crafted very carefully in order to do that effect on yourself. And that would be the one thing that I would like to share in terms of self-hypnosis. So that's magicalaudios.com. And people can
Magicalaudios.com. Thank you.
magicalaudios.com. And people can find me in Andrea Hypno, short for hypnosis, andreahypno.com. All the information is there. And well, they can also learn more about me on the Magical Audios website. But that's one thing that I really wanted to share, because I think we need as many tools as we can get, as easy to integrate as possible, especially in the times that we are living, to empower ourselves, to have agency in ourselves, and not to let the circumstances drown us, and not to believe those circumstances like they are the laws that run our lives.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful message and powerful, and it's where it's at and timely for the world right now. And I really love the mission that you're on, that I'm also on, that I also think is so unfair that we have so many of the women are in my world that are suffering with, they're burning out, they're becoming depressed and developing chronic pain, and there is a way out of that. And you know, your work in accessing the subconscious mind is just it just, you know, fills me with love and compassion, which is a good outcome.
Yes, it
Probably
is.
the outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we would be all full of love and compassion, I mean, that doesn't mean that you don't say no anymore and that you don't have
Yeah.
boundaries. It's the opposite. You learn to say
Mm-hmm.
no more. You respect your boundaries. You respect other people's boundaries. And the world
Yeah.
becomes a better place, because then we can all share respectfully.
100%. Andrea, thank you so much. And we'll leave all the links with the episode so people can start some of your magical audios. Get started right away, and find out how to work with you through your website. So thanks very much, and enjoy your day or night in Portugal.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you very much.